Hello everybody and welcome back to The Hobby Musician. On today's lightning lesson, I want to show you a very quick way that you can incorporate some really simplified chords into your playing. Now I know that I'm holding a bass right now, and if you're a guitar player, don't worry. We're going to take the exact same technique, add a couple little extra bits, and apply it to guitar later in the video. So if you're anxious to get to that, go ahead and use the progress bar below. I've put in chapters where you can see where that part will begin. I wanted to start with bass because if you've been playing for any length of time, you've probably already discovered that chords are just a traditionally difficult thing to do. Since the frequency range on this instrument is so low, anytime you start to play lots of notes all at the same time, they start to bleed into one another and end up creating a muddy, garbled mess. So we're going to solve that today with a technique where we are going to do two things simultaneously. First, we're going to take a chord and we're going to really simplify it down. As an example, I'm just going to play an A major chord as if it was strumming on a guitar. So I'm going to take the kind of major scale, major chord bar shape right here in just the first four strings. This is what a chord would be if we didn't do anything to it. Now, sure, you can kind of hear some of the tones in there, but just like we were saying a minute ago, so much of that harmonic content is so close together and so low that it can be hard to pick out the details. So the first thing we're going to do to make chords a little easier and better on the bass is we're going to simplify all of our chords down to just two notes. The second thing we're going to do is when we select those two notes, we are going to spread the notes out into different octaves. So by simplifying and cutting out notes, we're going to clear up some of that mud, and by separating the notes, we're going to clear them out of competing with each other for the same sonic space. So which two notes are we going to pick? Well, the most important note that we're going to need to include in our chord is the root note. So the low note that we're going to play is going to be whatever the one, the tonic, the root of our chord is going to be. So for example, when we were playing that A major chord, I'm going to keep the A. I'm also going to make sure that I'm really familiar with where the notes are on my low E string. We want to keep one note of our two in a low register, so when I move around and need to play different chords at different parts in a song, I'm going to need to know where those notes are because I'm going to be picking the root note specifically on this low E string. Now the second note that we're going to need to play is going to be the third tone of the chord. Now here is where we need to do a little bit of thinking on the fly. If you know a little bit about your music theory, you'll know that depending on the chord type, the type of third could change. For example, when we were playing A major, the third of A, so if we have A, 1, 2, 3, our third is a C sharp. Now that is the major third of the A scale, A chord, but if I wanted to play an A minor, I need to play the flat third of that scale. So as you're following along in your song and you see chord after chord after chord, what you're going to need to do on the fly, you're going to need to remember and know which third you need to play for that particular chord. So for our A, if we want to build it using that A example, I'm going to play my root on the low E string. That's going to be my A note. Now, instead of playing this third, which the shape, if I go up one fret and down one string, that's a 1 and a 3. I'm going to take that 3, and as we said earlier, I'm going to move it up an entire octave. So instead of playing the C sharp there, I'm going to play the higher octave C sharp, which is down here on the G string. So playing the A on the low E string, I skip 2 strings, and then on the G string, I'm going to go up 1 fret from where my finger is. And if I play those two together, I now am playing, I'm evoking that A major sound because I have the root note of an A and then the correct third for that A major. Now, to play a minor chord, as we said earlier, the difference between a major and a minor third is just going to be a half of a step. In other words, one single fret. So if I'm playing an A and the C sharp as a major chord, all I have to do to the C sharp is bring it down one fret, and now I've got A minor, A major, A minor. And those two shapes, the major shape and the minor shape, can now be moved around the neck to play any chord you want. If you need to play a D major, you can come up here, you find your D, and you can play your D major or D minor, whatever your needs are. Now, to do a full playing example with this technique, I just want to mention that although you can use these shapes and ideas in any genre of music you want, typically this kind of idea works best if you're in a situation where maybe there's kind of a stripped down band, maybe less musicians, and in those cases the bass player might need to handle a little more harmonic content of the song. So imagine yourself doing a coffee house gig where there was only a drummer and a bass player and a singer that showed up. Well, then the bass player can kind of help out that ensemble by playing some more chords underneath it. So for this example, I am going to play through a 5-2-4-1 chord progression in the key of G, and I'm going to play through it twice. The first time I play it through, I'm just going to stick to just playing kind of quote-unquote traditional bass root notes, as if there was the rest of the band with me playing the full chords. And then halfway through, I'm going to switch and I'm going to start playing chords along with it. And nothing about the beat or the rhythm is going to change, but hopefully you can see how this technique can kind of add some richness to that sound. Okay, everybody, we're all switched up. We've got our guitar now. And as we said at the beginning of the video, we're going to apply this exact same technique, this two-note chord, one note in a low octave, one note in a high octave, and we're going to apply it with some extra knowledge or technique specific to guitar. So what I want to do is I want to specifically choose the key of D because there's going to be a couple of things we can do. Since the register is higher, the frequency range is higher, we're going to be able to kind of add in some stuff so that we're playing maybe a little more than two notes, but it'll still highlight those two. The reason I want to pick the key of D is because if we were to go back and kind of look at the notes in the scale of D, and if we were to apply them or just play them on the low E string, if we started this D and we descend, we would have, and then our last note back up at the octave. But what this allows us to then do is remember the music theory that it goes along with that scale. Every note of the major scale can have a chord associated. And this entire episode is about playing two-note chords. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply those two-note chords, the major versions, the minor versions, to every single note in the scale, which then we can apply melodies to. So if I come up with a melody, a melodic line, every note of that melody, if we play our two-note chord, we can kind of really stretch and deepen that harmonic content. Now, the added bonus is that since we picked the key of D, if we look at our fingering, we have the low note with our index finger, and then what I'm doing is I'm resting my index finger on the A string, so it'll mute it, and even if I accidentally hit it, it won't play, you won't hear it. But the D string is open, and as we play, we can even have a droning D note throughout our melody, which will kind of add a little bit of flavor or spice to what we play. So this next little example is something that, is an adaptation of something I heard from a Tim Pierce video a long time ago. Just a gorgeous melody, simple way to use this kind of technique. So this is kind of that 2-chord idea applied to a melody. Well, there you have it, everybody. A quick and easy way to incorporate some simplified chords for bass players and guitar players alike. As always, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, play on, my friends, play on.